Welcome, everyone. This is Coffee with a Journalist, a podcast we do to help fellow publicists. I am one myself. Better understand how to work with reporters and journalists and the great editors that make the media world go round, frankly, because we need better relationships to make our work happen, and it's essential. So we're here today with, coming live from Pittsburgh. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan because I did my MBA there. Susannah Snider, she is the managing editor for Money at US News. Money is her beat. We're going to talk all about money. Susannah, thank you for being here. Hi.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you. So we did talk a little bit about Pittsburgh. So you are in Pittsburgh. Tell me why you're a fan, just so I know, and just can reminisce.
Oh my goodness. What is there not to love about Pittsburgh? The food, the people, the sports. I guess maybe not the weather, but besides
not
that,
the weather.
It's great.
Yes, but you know what I used to call it? My American study abroad, because as a Southern California gal, I thought, I'm going to the East Coast for my MBA. No, people were like, no, that's the Midwest. That is the Midwest. I was corrected adamantly. So learned that real quick. Okay. Susannah, I like to start by asking people, in case they aren't as familiar with every outlet we cover, what is USA News now covering? And then we'll drill into specifically your area.
Sure. So US News is a big, vibrant publication.
Yes.
We have all sorts of aspects to it. People might be familiar with our college rankings.
Yes, very popular.
Our news. Yes. But where I come from and the vertical that I work on has to do with consumer advice. So we have lots of consumer advice, ways that readers can learn to make better financial choices, health choices, real estate choices, investing choices. So the sort of arm that I am coming to you from is a consumer advice side of US News. But again, a large publication, and some of what I'm going to say today may not apply to every single part of the company and the reporters who work there. So it's definitely worth going to the website if you're interested in an editor and seeing what they cover and how it works.
Also, bonus, you're a certified financial planner.
I am.
So that gives you extra cred, I'm sure, in the money space, for sure.
It does. It was a not the easiest thing to achieve, but I did it.
I was going to say, because you did it in 2019, pre-COVID-ish. That's what I see on my notes. Okay, perfect. Ooh, so what spurred that? Because you don't usually see for journalists who go like, oh, wait, let me get the extra certification in the field that I'm in, or the master's or the PhD or whatever. It's not as common.
Well, there were a few things. I wanted to be more of an expert in my beat to understand it better, but I will say it was actually one of my favorite sources who encouraged me to do it. So I had a great relationship with somebody who I went to for quotes and for insights in my reporting.
No way.
He said, you should really go for this. And when I got my CFP, I wrote him a note saying, thank you for giving me the idea.
That.
So there you go.
Source told you. Look at that. Look at that. We'll put up this little thing for people to sign up on One Pitch too. Okay. Fascinating. I have not heard that before. I've not heard anyone say, hey, a source actually told me to do this and here you go. Okay. I do love that. Susannah, how's your inbox?
It's pretty wild.
Okay.
There are quite a few emails. One of my kind of favorite ways to think about it, or favorite stories, is when I came back from maternity leave, I had almost 2,000 emails unread after 12 weeks. And that's not coming from my team. Those were pitches. So they stack up.
What did you do?
I think I spent the first half of my first day back just deleting, making sure I hadn't missed any important HR announcements. And if you sent me an email while I was on maternity leave, I'd probably not respond.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, so 2,000 pitches in 12-week time. And I want to get into, as a managing editor, how different that could be, because you might be getting the pitches, but then your staff, your reporters and so forth. So what is maybe the mix between pitches, third-party publicists versus internal, or people trying to pitch you to write stuff, as freelancers perhaps, and everything else you might be getting, the HR emails?
It's a mix. I definitely get more pitches and outside emails than I do internal emails,
Oh,
if that makes sense. But what I do, and the way our email service works, is I have them all go right to a specific folder. So I
oh, okay.
often am not looking at them until I want to, which is a beautiful thing.
Oh, okay. So you just automatic
Yes.
that. Well, that's a good management tip. Okay, so all
Hmm.
pitches go into a folder, and then you're speaking of when I want to. So do you have certain times a day you specifically look in there, or no?
I would say it's not really on a daily cadence, it's more on a monthly or weekly cadence. So we're often
Oh,
pitching for the next month, like assigning out stories at the end of this month. So, the third and fourth week of
ah,
September, we'll start to make our editorial calendar for October. And that's when I might go into that pitch inbox and say, hey, did anybody reach out with anything cool, any good sources, anything I should send to my team or my freelancers, and let them know, like, hey, this is worth pursuing.
wow. So I I've heard so many people on here who on a daily basis, hourly basis, they're deleting. You just have folder, set it and
Mhm.
forget it, go there when I want, and review then.
Yep,
Wow.
that's how it works for me. I'd say the only time I'm sort of forced to see your pitch is the first time you ever email me, because then I'll
Oh,
have the option, does this go into this bucket or that bucket? So make sure that first pitch is a good one.
it better be.
Yep. And
Oh,
that's like,
okay.
and then, the email will ask, hey, is this where you want to file this person in the future? I'll say yes. And then, I only need to see you when I'm really thinking about story ideas.
I think everyone should adopt this for the journalists here who listen to maybe this show because they sometimes do. Okay, so are you an inbox zero person then?
So that main inbox is at 0. Yes. The pitch inbox is not at 0. It's
Oh
at who
no,
even knows.
no, 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 we don't even
But
know.
yes, that's why I have
Wow.
to do it, because if they were just sitting unread in my main inbox, it would not be good for me.
Oh
I
yeah.
would not be
It's
able to
just
do anything.
it is a wide spectrum though on the show. We have the let it ride, I have
Mhm.
137,000 emails. And then there's the people in the cool club, really malicious cool club where the server just deletes everything in 90 days. So some of the big outlets, it just goes away. It evaporates. Imagine every 90 days, all your emails. You're just like, oh, oh man,
Ah,
amazing. And then
yeah,
there's you. There's you, a very rare club who's like, yeah, it's zero. It's zero.
it's 0. But
God,
again,
I
there's a
love
pitch
it. Me too.
inbox
I'm a
that is
zero person too.
probably 1,000 or more.
Okay.
So
Yeah. So
yeah.
there's some nuance to this. Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Got you. You touched on sources, the one who told you to, of course, get
Hmm.
this advanced degree. Amazing. What are or who are the sources that are particularly of interest for you, if
For
any?
my beats, I would say we love experts. It's really
Okay.
helpful if you are an expert in your field. For the financial side, that might be a CFP, a CPA. On the real estate side, maybe you're a realtor or a tradesperson who really understands a specific aspect of your practice. We're really looking for
Mm,
people who can demonstrate expertise, analysis,
yeah.
insights on the beat. And there are a lot of people out there who want to give quotes. We really want to find folks who understand what we're asking and can give really great advice. And that's part of the challenge of sifting through all these sources.
hmm I'm sure you get a number of I am an expert. What's a qualified expert versus not? Because do you want to see the letters behind the name, for example, or the years of experience or whatever it may be?
It's going to be dependent on the
Oh,
story and on the
okay.
beat, for sure. Letters after the name can certainly help if it's kind of like a hard financial topic, say taxes.
Yeah.
I'd really love to see a CPA or a CFP or an enrolled agent, somebody who works in the space. But if it were a design story for real estate, maybe they don't necessarily have letters after their name, but they're still very knowledgeable in the
hmm
space. That's fine. So it's a case by case basis, but anybody can start a website and say that they're an expert. So we want to make sure that that person really has, experience in the field.
That's why I was asking, yeah, because expert is so broad these days, unfortunately. So, yes, okay,
It
good.
is.
What about pitches then? Well, we go into that folder that is, who knows how many are in there. What is standing out to you? Does it start with the subject line or do you actually open all the dang pitches?
A subject line is great. That's
Okay.
probably 90% of them, all I'm going to see.
Okay. Yeah.
Preferably a very clear, concise, no spelling errors, kind of subject line.
hmm
Definitely the first hurdle.
Okay, yeah, exactly, to get the open. So what, and further with that subject line, is it you're seeing like the name of the expert, or is it tied to some piece? We've heard some people just have specific looks, specific asks of what they want to see in a subject line. So thought I would ask.
Dependent again on the beat and the story. Seeing a source name is great. We're not necessarily looking for like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like celebrity interviews in the same way maybe another publication would.
Mhm.
So their expertise or who they are is probably just as important. We don't do breaking news, but if it were tied to maybe something happening in the next month, that would be of interest to me. So, rate cuts,
Yeah.
inflation data, if you can tie it to something that maybe we're going to be covering, that's helpful too.
Okay, good to know. And then how about the approval process for a story? And I love when we have editors on here because you're usually up the food chain in determining that. Tell us more about that so the publicist can know.
So I think of our editorial calendar a little bit like an old school magazine editorial calendar. Like, again, we're thinking 4 to 6 weeks out, and we build out the month, like, in 1 or 2 meetings. So, again, no, if you're pitching for October, in October, that calendar is set.
Yeah.
From there, it's a collaborative process. We work with a lot of freelancers to assign things out. So again, it really helps for us to work in advance, to have a lot of advance notice of what we're doing so we can communicate with our team of writers.
Okay. And you're saying team of writers. How many is this team?
Oh gosh, we work with many freelancers, many writers, at least a dozen, maybe 2 dozen people.
Oh, okay. So that's
Yeah.
another chunk of people to manage. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So this is good to know, 4 weeks, 6 weeks out in advance. You got to be thinking about that. And is it, tell us a little bit more. Is there like a meeting held with you and other people or the whole team, or like how does that go down?
Sure. I meet with each of my editors. We often have our homepage editor in that meeting as well. And we're talking through, what's happening next month. We've got inflation data coming out. Say it's October, Halloween. Maybe we'll tie some Halloween stories to real estate or personal finance or careers. And then what are some evergreen stories that we need to refresh? What's due to be updated, refreshed, looked at again? I think people might not understand how much we go back to our old stories and see if they need to be updated.
I'm glad you touched on this. Someone from Wirecutter who was on was saying, hey, like we update the reviews and stuff because the SEO value is so high. Tell us a little bit more about that. What does updating mean?
So it depends on the piece and what it needs.
Yeah.
It could involve going back to former sources. It could involve going to new sources. It could involve putting in new data, new graphical or visual elements. It could be a light review, or we could be totally rewriting and adding whole new sections. So it's really, again, going to depend on the story, but it's great to sometimes have new sources to go to for those updates.
Okay. And I'm thinking, just what's the volume of those stories that need updating? Is it like 1/10 of all the stuff you work on? Or is it like, oh no, it's like 20% of our content? I don't know. Like,
a lot of our stories are updates, at least half.
Oh, at least half. Oh, wow. Oh, never heard
And
this.
again, that doesn't mean that there isn't any reporting, but it's worth, I think, noting that we're not always looking for new story ideas. We're looking for the data, the source, the analysis.
Updates, yeah. Oh, this is good to know. I think for publicists to go like, okay, could I have something to update to this piece? And maybe you reference that in your pitch.
Sure. Although I have a caveat about that.
Oh, tell us now.
One of my pet peeves is when we write a story and somebody pitches us and says,
I know what you're going to
no,
say.
you just wrote this story,
but could you
write it again and quote me this time? And that's not how it's going to work. It's going to be, 6 months or a year later when we would revisit it.
Yeah.
Likely.
Why do you think people do that?
I don't know. I'd be curious. Why do you think people do that?
I don't know. We got to ask our community, our pitch posse, to figure out why do you do that? Because I've heard it many times on here, and it's like the story was just fresh 24 hours ago. It's not. It is complete.
It's not like a breaking news story where something happens and you're on the scene putting out story after story on it. Right. It's we do these, and maybe we're on this beat, but we're not going to rewrite that same story every day for a week.
Very interesting. I think this is a good community ask. Kendall and our producers, let's make an ask of that of why Publicists, why are you doing this?
Let
Okay.
me know what you find out.
I will report back. Speaking of Publicists, okay, you're in Pittsburgh. Do you want to make any relationships with publicists, whether like in person or at all? Let's just even start with that, like at all.
Sure. When I was doing more reporting, I really, really, really liked to get to know the sources, that I used. And one of the things that was helpful was, like, let's say I was doing a story on adoption, like the cost of adoption. If I knew you were adopting a child, I might come to you
Yeah.
as an expert source, but also somebody who had a personal experience with what I was covering. Or, if I was doing the cost of weddings and I knew you were getting married this year, maybe you'd be the perfect person to speak to about that. So I liked having those, life event pieces of information from people I worked with.
Oh, fun. So from the publicist or from your source?
I'd say more from the expert source
maybe for
than the
experts.
publicist itself.
Oh,
but
yeah.
yeah, so if they're, I'm constantly working with a financial advisor who I know a few things about, like they're sending their kids to college, be helpful to say, okay, I'm writing a piece about the cost of college. Can you talk to me about like what you're doing in your family?
Okay, this is good. I never
As far
thought
as
of like
publicists,
a little, yeah.
It's always nice to have a friendly relationship, but less helpful to have maybe like their life story.
Yeah, you don't need that. Okay, gotcha. You had mentioned earlier pet peeves. Do you have any others?
The only other thing would maybe be, just not understanding our timeline, pitching breaking news to us. We're just not going to be able to cover it. And, 5 follow-ups isn't going to change it.
Okay. Yeah. 5. It's not good. Is there, maybe on the flip side, is there anything that publicists do or could do to make your life easier?
If they and their clients or the sources they work with are just very available, willing to maybe be a source, not on the story they pitched, but on a different story, that's really helpful.
I've heard this so often. Oh, they don't respond, in 24 hours or 48 hours. And it's like, what are you going to do with that? Now you have no story, in terms of getting the interview booked or getting the expert that you need. And it's like, now we got nothing. Has that happened before, by the way, where you're like, okay, so book me the interview, and crickets?
Very rarely, very, very rarely, but yes, it does happen.
Oh, man. Difficult. Okay. Susannah, we talked about how to make publicists make it easier for you. Okay, great. I do have my rapid fire questions if you want to play that.
Let's play.
Let's do it. Okay. Video or phone interviews?
Phone.
Phone all the way. Bullet points or paragraphs in a pitch?
It doesn't matter as much as long as it's kind of easy to read, brief, to the point.
Okay, great. So we're going with short pitches versus long pitches. Next question. Okay.
Short, yes.
Images attached or a Dropbox zip file?
I don't know if this is what you typically hear, but I'd say you don't really need to attach anything. If we need a headshot or a data visualization or something from you later, let's definitely collaborate. But I think my tech team will be happy to hear that I try not to, click on downloads and attachments from emails from outside sources.
Oh, good point. Oh, increasingly good point. We haven't talked enough about that probably on the show of just, hey, there's a lot, especially bigger outlets like security, filters, all types of things. Oh,
Yeah, I'm pretty, I try not to click on anything unless I know I'm working with the person that I think I am.
Email or a DM of any sort?
100% email. And I'd say the big reason for that is because you have to think about how I'm communicating with my editors or my writers. Way easier to forward an email than I don't even know how you forward like a DM, or a LinkedIn message. Just
Just
text.
email. Just email. Oh, text. You ever want people? No.
Never.
No. Everybody, do not text. No. Okay. Clarifying. Okay. Yes. You said the 5 follow-ups. Do you ever want to follow up though?
A follow-up is okay, but again, it's not, I think sometimes people feel like they have to be doing something. It's really not going to make a difference. Either we're covering it and reaching out to you or we're not.
That is another question to bring to our community. Who is telling you go do
Yeah.
those follow-ups, and they're like sending the fourth follow-up, and I think it's coming from maybe junior publicists who are just like, okay, but my boss told me I had to like do it, but it gets you nothing. So
Yeah. It feels like you're doing something, but really, truly, it's probably been sent to spam. It's just not.
yeah.
Yeah.
Direct or creative subject lines? You mentioned this before. Direct.
I'd say
Seems like
direct. The topic can be fun and creative, but what it says should be easy to understand.
easy to understand. Press release or media kit?
A press release.
Okay. And then the next question is, what time do you read pitches? But I think your answer is when I want, when I want at the end of the week, maybe, or whatever.
Yep, when I'm looking for ideas.
Oh, that's some freedom here. And then we also covered sources. So I think we're good on that. Susannah, is there anything we could do to celebrate, promote, tout, anything that you're up to perhaps?
I'd say just my big takeaway is, as I mentioned before, US News is a big company. Everything that I edit or review is on usnews.com. So if you're curious about what I'm covering or what a real estate editor or a personal finance editor or a retirement editor is covering, just go and click on their byline. And you can see everything they've edited, like since the beginning of time. So please, it's no mystery what we do. It's no mystery what we're assigning out or who we work with. Feel free to just go to usnews.com and explore.
I like that. And explore.
Explore, click on bylines, look
Explore.
at people's names, look at
Actually
their bios. Yeah.
read the news outlet. Imagine that.
Yeah, maybe you'll come away with some good financial advice or real estate advice or
You're gonna
career
learn
advice,
something.
Yeah.
Indeed. By the way, to end us for today, Susannah, what's the craziest money thing you've heard or you've written about?
Oh gosh. Oh, I was working for the investing team during the meme stock, I think it was 2021 when all of that was happening on Reddit. That was a really fun, very wild time. We got some very, very fun pitches. So those were good times. Kind of miss those days.
Oh yeah. That was some crazy time.
Yeah.
Oh, Susannah, thank you so much for being here today. Everybody, this is the managing editor of the money section at US News, Susannah Snider. Thank you so much, Susannah. And thanks for giving me a little memory lane walk, to Pittsburgh, good old Pittsburgh. I got to go back.
Yes, you're welcome whenever you'd like, back in the city.
Can't wait. Perfect. Thanks, Susannah. Appreciate you.
Bye.
Bye.